It's Tuesday at 2 o'clock, so it is time for the Return to Work Task Force webinar. We have a delightful guest today. I'm so honored to have a friend and colleague here with us for what will be our final webcast here in the month of August. So without further ado, I will introduce you Kyra Hardwick, and she will tell you about the work that she does and how you too can be resurgent. Take it away, Kyra.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. I am absolutely honored to be here with you all today, and I'm excited to share a bit about what it means to be resurgent in this COVID space, in this kind of opportunity for us to realize what it means to be successful in our businesses, in our families, and in our communities. And so as a part of the conversation, we're going to really dig into the idea around being resurgent and being experiencing fully the resurgence of your business and yourself, really thinking about that. What does it mean to really make it over, to start afresh? And this is an opportunity for a lot of us to shed some of those challenging things that we still had embedded in our business, in our daily lives, etc. But before I go too far, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am, about our organization, and what we bring to the world, so you'll understand exactly how we're serving and the perspective that we're bringing. So I am Kyra Hardwick. I am the managing consultant and master strategist for the Kyra Company. We are a full-service business development firm. We're excited to be here with you today. We're going to walk you through an incredible dialogue, and we certainly encourage you to ask any questions and share any insight that really resounds with you. If you hear something that is really, really connected to what you've experienced, we want to know that. We want to hear about that. We want to have the full-on human experience with you as we're walking through the process, because by all means, we've all had to push pause in some way in order to really reset and think about where we are. So what does it mean to be that organization that successfully rises from crisis in a design thinking kind of way? What does that really mean? And what does it mean to do it right this time? One of my favorite quotes, and I actually coined it, so I'll quote it this way: you either have time to do it right or do it over. One of the most monumental moments in my life is understanding that that quote resounds true in every single aspect of what I do every day. And I think if you take a deep breath, you will have the same experience, understanding that if you don't try first to do it the best, most accommodating, and most efficient way, you're going to have to backtrack. You're going to have to step back and do something, some aspect, some part of it, learn it over, spend more money on it, whatever that means, but you're going to have to do that. So I'm going to talk to you about how we can do a little prevention work in that space, and how you can be the leader of an organization that has figured out how to really successful rise from crisis, having implemented some design thinking components in their business. And we're going to focus and hone in specifically on collaboration today as one of those design thinking strategies that you can really implement in your business. The Kyra Company is committed to optimizing businesses. Here's how we do what we do. We are focused on strategic consulting, leadership development and training, and operational management. Our goal is to make sure that there is complete success and longevity in our clients' organizations, and we do that by obviously implementing our strategic plans, focused on 3 core elements, our favorite areas to focus. If you get this, you'll get it for a lifetime, and you'll be able to implement over and over again. The core of any organization are people, the processes that they work, and the profitability model that they flow through. So people, process, and profitability, that is our business model, that is our focus. Everything we do centers around our ability to align the people with processes that impact positively their profitability. The way we do the work we do is we go look for those profit leaks that are impacting this flow, and we go back and look and identify the people issues that we need to address, be it the senior leadership or the client experience. We go back and we look at the processes that we're working in, whether it's the processes that run our daily operations or the lack thereof. It's all relevant, and we go in and we take a look at what it really takes in order to design processes that are going to increase efficiency, elevate the ability for you to generate revenue, and increase your employees' engagement. And if you are a business of one, that means your engagement as well. And I'm going to show you today how we can make that really come to life. We want the profit that rolls through your business to be repeatable, to be consistent, and to for you to know that you have efficiencies that are going to consistently keep you in a place where earning revenue is a part of the life cycle of your business. We're going to really drive that home today. What is resurgence? And I'm going to slow down a little bit because I really want to spend time here, and I want us to think about it, not just the word, but the experience, the act, the function of going through a resurgence. It's an increase or a revival after a period of little activity, popularity, or occurrence. Our goal is to trigger a surge of power, forward or upward movement by business owners, enterprising leaders, and innovative CEOs. What does that mean? It's almost like pulling back a bow and an arrow. It's almost like pulling back a rock in a slingshot. You're in a position where there's tension and there's tightening, and in order for you to get the thrust you need to advance forward, you have to get into the resistance of it. You have to figure out what it will take for you to pull it back, pull it forward, and to literally catapult past where you last were, and exceed that space. You're going distance that you've never gone before. You're seeking opportunity in a way you've never sought it before. And so I want you to really understand and embody and really get close and intimate with the idea of what it means for you to really resurge. And that is the emergence of you. How do you do that? And how do you do that in a way that makes you better? And how do you do that in a way that literally increases the quality of your network and increases the value of the business and the work that you do, that elevates your thinking, that really shifts your mindset? One thing I can say, and I know I'm not alone here, that being in this position, I call it this COVID condition, where we literally have to think about everything happening around us. We've probably had more solitude than we've had in years, more focus. We're aligned probably more centrally than we ever have been in years, mind, body, and soul. We're thinking about others more succinctly than we have probably in years. And this has called us to a position or a point of alertness, an acute state of being that we've not experienced in a long time. Sure. Many of us have moments that we are more acutely aware of what's going on around us than not. But there are those moments, this moment, which has created this collective and almost, and I call it a trifecta in terms of crisis for us, where not only are we in what we've identified as our health crisis in the pandemic, which then triggers a financial crisis in our economy on a global level. And then we are also in a culture crisis where we have a very heightened awareness of the dynamics that culture has played in our world and how it impacts our dollars, our emotions, our business, our function, and our decision making. We now have to fall in line and become more alert and aware with everything all at the same time. All five senses are alert. Everything that we know to be true about who we are, we get to put in position to test it, to try it. And I challenge you in this moment to not just absorb the impact, but be in position to respond to it. And that's a little different. So just like you're going to make impact when you draw that bow and arrow back, or you're going to make impact when you draw the rock back in the slingshot and catapult forward, just like you're going to do that, connect right now and understand that this is a moment, and we've all heard it in some way, shape, or form, that has called us to center. So we are acutely aware of self, the family and friends around us, or those family and friends that are not around us, how we want to do business going forward, new innovative ideas around how we do business. And so it's really causing us to evaluate how we show up and then how those around us have done the same thing. So I am challenging you now to get real familiar with the feeling of resurgence and get real familiar with the idea of moving forward. And I want you to understand that one of the things we're going to talk about today is really the catalyst for helping us all accelerate this experience and really create some momentum going forward. We probably have gained some traction now, right? Some of us have gained traction and we've gotten our hope reestablished, and our courage is more foundational in terms of who we are, how we believe, and what we think. We've had some great days. We've had some challenging days. Now the concept of resurging now strong as leaders in every facet and every way that we lead is now upon us. This is our duty to carry. This is our opportunity to show up. And this is our opportunity to write the narrative associated with this time period. We are literally trailblazers when it comes to critical crisis in our government, critical crisis in our economy, critical crisis in our business world, both private and public sector. The nonprofit space has found impact that they've probably never seen before. For those of us that have multiple businesses and understand the dynamics of one thriving and one struggling to emerge, it's now our time to consider what it means to really, really foundationally resurge and do that well. What is the resurgence process? And so I'm going to tell you, this was a completely hands-on. If I was a case study, then I was the hamster in the wheel, because I learned literally the practical application of resurgence immediately. And one of the things I found, and it humbled me to my feet, but it also birthed an incredible idea, concept, and now program, and now talk track that I get to have with you, is that one of our businesses, and I have a nonprofit organization, we were not set up to win. And this is the organization I've had the longest. It's the organization that I've promoted the longest. I understand it. I'm integral in it. We were not set up to win. We were not technology savvy. Our donor base wasn't diverse. Our ability to respond in the immediacies of crisis was not agile. We lacked it. How can the same leader of a thriving consulting firm lack leadership capacity in a nonprofit? It's all about focus, and it's all about implementation, and it's about the team. When I started to really think through some of the work that I do with business owners, and I was speaking to the director of the Women's Business Center, Shirley Brooks, and she said, Kyra, we need to figure out a resource that will be recession-proof and crisis-proof and issue-proof and all of these things that are bulletproof, essentially. And I said, there's no industry, there's no business model, there's no business type that is absolutely foolproof. There's nothing. And it's at one point in time when crisis hits that one market exceeds and one market declines. One market accelerates, one market slows down. So it's not a matter of something being just foolproof and bulletproof and impact proof. It's about understanding the ebbs and flows of the market, and how do we make sure that we know how to move and adjust and pivot, right? We all heard the word pivot ad nauseum, I'm sure you did, and shift and adjust. And now the agility in industry is something that we need to become more aware of and to connect with. How do we do that? And so when she challenged me with the idea, and I thought, she always comes to me with the most incredible challenges. How do I respond to this? Because I will respond. It is not in me to say, I don't know. I'm going to find a way. And so I really was working on some relationships inside my nonprofit, and I was toying around with what we need to do, because we needed to respond quickly, and we're still in the process of responding. But I did not know, because the schools were our primary base of revenue. And so our contracts with the schools, the coveted contracts with ISDs, was in jeopardy now. We had gone through the greater portion of our school year, so we weren't in a deficit, but we certainly were not in a surplus. And so I thought through that, and I slept a couple nights, and I said, well, what do I do? And, as I'm asking that question from who I seek my strength. And I said, well, how do I create this? She presented this challenge. What is it that she's really asking me? And I believe that if she asks me, then there's an answer somewhere within, or within my network. And so when I started working on my nonprofit, Imagine Excellence, I started to experience this resurgence process. And when I started experiencing this resurgence process, I said, oh my goodness, we're the customer, we're the client. We need to go through this. And so I started really identifying what all of our challenges were. What were all of our issues? What were our deficits? Where are our gaps? And I started to literally do a strategic analysis on the nonprofit. And when I started doing that, I realized technology was not in place. And just as I listed the other things, our donor diversity was not in place. Our ability to sustain outside of the contracts that were very substantial in our districts, that couldn't carry us the distance when the districts were no longer doing business the way that we do business with them. And so we literally had to just think on it. And as I started to think on it, this started to form. And I am a consummate student. And so the first thing I did was I literally drafted a brief, and I wrote a white paper essentially on the process of resurging. And that's how the ideas came through. What do we need to do? And so I started by looking at what we were doing in our consulting firm to respond to our inability to connect directly with people, and how we needed to leverage resources, et cetera. And then I started to mirror that for the nonprofit. So I literally wrote a brief based on what we were doing well in the consulting firm, what we weren't doing well in the nonprofit, and there opened the gaps for us. And so I wrote this brief, and I was like, wow, okay, I understand it. I have it. I have the ingenuity behind it. I get it. Now let's think about how we function. And so these were the things that started to show up. And so I'm going to walk through them. Resurgence is a hands-on business development experience. If you are in business, if you're running a home, by all means, that is a business. Regardless of your focus and your initiative, it is hands-on. Now is not the time to put yourself in position where you are delegating. You need to get in sync with what is going on, and you need to do that immediately. And so now let's think about that. The art or the experience of resurging is all about understanding your current state. Where are you? We're going back to the simplicities of project or process management or process evolution, which is, what is my current state? Where do we desire to be? And then, like I call it, that delta. What is that delta in the middle, which is where change happens? What is the distance between current state and desired state, and how do I get there? Here's where you start to create your process. And so what we realized is it was going to require us to evaluate our leadership style and ability. And so the first leader I evaluated was myself. What are the things that I need to do better? Where am I showing up well? How do I need to improve? So I started to really walk through that, and I took myself through this process first, and then started to share it with my colleagues. And then the next thing that happened was Resurgence really did cause me to evaluate the organization's culture. If I am a culture that thrives on the free flow of providing exceptional customer care, open dialogue, connectivity, and accessibility, how do I now do that in this disposition? How do I do this being remote? How do I do this with fear? How do I do this with uncertainty very, very close to me? How do I do that? How do I show up for my clients? And I think one of the things that was so important for me was to make sure that I showed up in my authentic space. So if I was uncertain, if I wasn't polished, I know this may seem a little scary for some, but we've created a community on social media, on Facebook, and one of the things we did was literally, I went live as often as I had information. So where my colleagues were feeding information into us, I started to go live and share it. And so for me, it was being a conduit. How do I make sure that we keep that context of our culture, very present? And it was all about keeping the communication flowing and being a reliable resource. That was true for the nonprofit, and that was true for the consulting firm, the Kyra Company. And so for you, I want you to think about that. It's going to cause you to evaluate your culture. And so not only did the crisis cause us to evaluate the culture, the initial crisis, which was the pandemic, but then our cultural crisis that we experienced nationally, where we're dealing with the implicit bias and the outfall and the downturn and the exposure and the hyper exposure of inadequacies in our governance and in our law enforcement, the mistreating of African Americans and minorities, and all the things that were showing up, the disparities that are consistently and resoundingly showing up. But now they're showing up in a way that's motivating purchase, buyer behavior, consumer activity, continuity. We're blacking out. There are other things happening that's triggering behaviors that I'm not familiar with. I haven't seen these behaviors in our market. None of us have. So what do we do? And so now the behaviors in our market are causing us to think differently about how we respond. So as a business, as individuals observing this, and now business owners, our customers are also experiencing the same thing. And it's important for us to understand that our customers are having the same experience for the most part that we're having. And so how do we then synthesize with our customer, make sure that we've assessed our culture as an organization, and then understand what that translation really is? Are we moving the needle forward, or are we receding and moving the needle back? Meanwhile, we're still trying to make sure that we stay afloat, stay focused, and stay positive and connected as we adjust to our pandemic. So all of these things are happening dynamically all at the same time. Resilient leaders, really the best of them, we've all had to sit down and take 10, right? Because we needed to really reset to understand how to move in this space. So the question for you I'm asking is, how can you be that how-to organization? How can you show another organization how to do it? But this is the guide. The Resurgence process is that how-to. Okay, not sure what caused that trigger, but no question. So we're going to keep going. So here we go. Let's continue to walk through the Resurgence process. Resurgence also prompts us to consider if we are strategic enough to adjust. And I just really walked through that with you, and I gave you some very lifelike examples of how that thing works. Are we strategic enough? And have we elevated high enough above our business operations to understand how to respond to crisis? And that is something that a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders, whether you're leading, some of the larger corporations or you're leading a small, mid-sized business, it does not matter. You have had to dine with this conversation. You have had to come to grips with it. Am I strategic enough? Do I have enough intel? Have I done enough market research? Have I planned out far enough? Have I created enough disruption in the market to still be valid and viable when this thing blows over? Have I gotten out far enough as a trailblazer? Am I a household name? Do my consumers, does my buyer know that I'm here? Do they really know? Have we been riding on the wave of referrals and missed an opportunity to really engage and market our business? How do we fix that? And the best of us have had to say, let's really think about how to stay relevant, and let's make sure that what we're bringing is viable and fresh fruit to the market. Let's figure this out. And then what Resurgence also triggered was that need. It elevated us, kind of that need to have the critical and the crucial conversations. And here's where I kind of pause, because there are so many different types of leaders in the world, and I don't care what assessment you take, there's so many different ways to look at how we lead and what our leadership looks like. And so for me, I am literally, laughing, because I think that the most human of us have had to have even some difficult conversations, even those of us that are so okay with having the tough conversations and getting close to the issues and telling our team members that we're going to have to make adjustments in staffing. I'm not certain about the next 90 days. Here's what it looks like in our market and industry. Here's what our forecast is. Or, oh, by the way, we just took on this huge project and it's going to cause us to have to work much more, but now we work much more uniquely by working at home or remote. We were going to have to adjust our workspace. I've had clients, when the onset of this occurred, went into panic mode. And it's very difficult to penetrate a conversation with a CEO that has committed to movement in a panic mode in a crisis. And so you're gonna feel like they're opposition. And so when that happens, you have to understand that they're gonna have to probably walk that full circle, and for them to come back and realize that they made some adjustments too quickly. One of the things that happened was a lot of business owners responded in fear versus strategy. And so you need to think about whether or not you're willing to have critical conversations with your staff, and I'm sure you've had to have some, or with yourself, to say, is this successful? Are we moving in the right direction? And if we are, and if we've seen an uptick, how do we continue to make that go? So
Kyra,
I'll take a breath here. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Good deal. So someone writes, how do we know when we're operating in a panic mode? Obviously, there's lots of things that are demanding our attention right now, but what is the difference between panic and a sense of urgency, and how do we know that we're in the right one?
That is such a great question. I believe, and thank you for asking that question. Let me say it like this. There's this knowing that we have in our gut. And before we get into any science or strategy around it, in our gut, we know. And there is a sense of panic that produces an anxiety. And that is simple human behavior. And so you can ask the best, behavioral specialists or or psychologists, and when that energetic movement of panic shows up, it creates a bit of a chaos, and it almost scrambles our thinking. And so if you're not certain as to whether or not you're responding in panic or urgency, the best thing you can do is to write down your strategy. Stop, write down your concept, your idea, your strategy, your next move. Write it down so that you can see it. What's going to happen when you do that is it will literally be one of the most fluid experiences you'll have. Number one, you're writing it down, so it's leaving your mind, going through and hitting and showing up on the paper. So what are you doing? You're reading it, you're hearing it, you're considering it, so you're seeing it, you're going through the process of understanding your thought. And when you do that, you can then start to put context around it to know that if this is the task that I'm going to, or the task I'm going to take on, if this is the move I'm going to make, then you also then know these are some of the outcomes that could happen. When you write it down, you can write step one, potential outcomes. Now you're in a sense of urgency and deliberate strategic movement because you're thinking through the flow of your steps. You're thinking through the outcomes of what you're doing. That is how you know. So even if it shows up first as panic, take control, grab the reins and pull it back in because you have control. You have control. I don't care what you hear on the news. I don't care what you hear in your industry. I don't care what your boss says, what your team members say. You still have very secure elements of control. And the most important thing that you control is how you think and perceive a thing to be. And so taking control, optimizing your brilliance by writing it down and putting that strategy on paper, that will give you clarity on whether or not you're in panic or you're in urgency. Great question. Great question. And go ahead, Jeanette.
I was just going to say thank you. I think that was a great answer, and it certainly provided important insight because there's a fine line between panic and focus. And that's what I'm sure that our listener wanted to hear. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. I think that the more we talk about it, the more human this process becomes, right? The more we talk about it, the more conscious and conscientious we are about what's happening and how we communicate with others. And so asking questions like that, asking real simple questions that help me get from A to B without tripping over that fine line in the middle, that is what makes the difference for us. It's not the big leaps. It's not A to Z. It's A to B that makes the biggest difference for us in our steps. And so the last point here, Resurgence really does prompt us to consider our customer's journey and what and how we can improve it, what we need to do to improve it and how we can do so. And if you've really looked at what's been going on in your business or what the market is saying, and I'm big on market research and what is your industry saying, what are your competitors doing, you are going to have some of the best intel as you start to walk that path because you're going to understand. Number one, your customer is going to give back to you their experience. So ask for it. That is a critical and a crucial conversation. Be okay with it. Get the feedback. Make some adjustments. One bit of feedback around a customer journey that I had inside of COVID, but it's a program we've been running for years. One bit of feedback caused me to literally change the entire delivery of the program. And when I changed the entire delivery of the program, we're in the process now. It allowed me to be able to bring on a team that could automate the solution for us. It is not an easy process to go into automation with something that's been very manual, but it allowed us to automate it. It allowed me to see how I can create jobs for other consultants. It allowed me to see how we can create volume and increase the revenue of that product line in our business. That one bit of feedback triggered all of the other steps that now we'll feel the benefit of going into 2021. So I'm going to tell you, have those conversations. If I had panic when that customer provided me with that complaint, I would not have been able to get into a strategic state of mind to write down what would work and seek out a solution for it. I would not have been able to do that. I am very conscientious about my customer experience, and I take every single complaint to heart, just like I do the accolades. And so I want to make sure that my customer journey is exceptional. That is who we are, that is embedded in our culture. And we want to make sure we're consistent with that. And we call it at the Kyra Company, we call it TKC Care. That was coined by one of our team members, and that's what we provide. We provide that level of care and concern, and we trigger, that's a trigger word for us when we don't believe we're doing it. And so we'll call each other on it and say, oh, I don't think that was TKC Care, let's go fix that. And we do that internally and externally. So whatever it is for you, taking the time to really walk through the steps of resurging, the resurgence prompts, go through them, really go through them and let them become a part of how you live going forward. All right. Now let's talk about the kind of the secret sauce beneath resurgence. Collaborating in crisis. You know, we're sitting in our homes, we're operating in our home offices. We've had to create space that looks good and appealing on a Zoom and on a live video. We've had to create space that wouldn't ordinarily be broadcast to the world if we're not in our offices specifically. And that takes a little bit of agility, a little creativity, and a little bravery on our parts too, because we're more vulnerable than we've ever been. And I will say this, the best question I've ever asked someone, and you couldn't have told me it would have been, let me say it like this, you couldn't have told me it would have been the best question. I learned that it was, and that it would pay off in such a tremendous way. But it was in 2019, as a part of our business strategy, it required us to get into a space of collaboration in order to increase capacity. And we really started looking at that in 2017, put the infrastructure in 18, did a lot of things to prepare for that. And then it hit the strategy for 2019, and we had to push go. And so when we pushed go on that, it required me as the leader to literally strike first. And believe it or not, as vocal as I may be, as outgoing as I may be, as committed to driving success for businesses as I may be, I was really petrified of this. And I had all these things going and floating around in my head, all these reasons why, and I call them all the reasons why not, right? These were all the reasons why this would not be a good ask to make of someone. And I remember, you know, chatting this up and talking it over with one of my really good friends. She's a high-level leader in corporate, and I said, this is my thought, what do you think? You know, and I have 15 years of corporate experience, so I understand the value of people and resources and building your network. I've been doing that all along, but in this instance, it was different, and I think it had everything to do with fear. And she said, well, why don't you do it like this? And I'm going to tell you what the thing was. It was to open my mouth, schedule a meeting, open my mouth, and say to a colleague that I admired and thought had incredible depth in her skill set, to say, what can we collaborate on? Do you have any projects that I can support you on? That seems like the most simplistic thing to do, right? It was so difficult for me because I had told myself that as a business owner, no other business is going to want to collaborate with me. That may pose a threat on either end. It may cause me to give up secrets and IP that I don't want to give up. I don't want to give away my intellectual properties. I don't want to put my business at risk of being captivated or captured under someone else's label. What do I do with that? And perhaps the person that I'm asking doesn't want that either. And it was as simple as having a lunch, and the lunch, or we actually had coffee. And when we had coffee, my colleague and I, she had an ask for me. She had an ask for me. How humbled was I? Her ask for me was the very same thing. It was to collaborate and utilize a resource. And I said, well, if that's the case, that's great. Absolutely. Let's put the plan together. We'll make this happen for you. Not a problem. Here's my ask of you. So just as I was in fear around creating a collaboration, she had that on her agenda to talk to me about. And so when we did that, it was as simple as her saying, absolutely, yes, let's talk on Thursday. I have an opportunity. I have a client that made this request just the other day. You're perfect for it. Just that fast. And we literally have been collaborating ever since. And so I want to talk to you about that. And I'm going to share more about that particular collaborative partner in just a moment. But collaborating in crisis is incredible currency. Regardless of crisis or not, collaboration is currency. It generates capacity, which generates more opportunity, which generates more revenue because you execute on it, period. So let's talk about this. I went and took a look to find some really amazing collaborations, and I found these. So Uber and Spotify, you can get in an Uber through the Uber app, and you can get right to a Spotify playlist. And now you have the luxury of listening to your favorite playlist in an Uber, which is not your vehicle. It is your transport to your next destination. How amazing is that? Louis Vuitton and Supreme. Supreme is a skateboard brand that is now connected to a luxury brand. How in the world did they figure that out and make that mix? What they did was increase the capacity of their markets overall. Supreme, the Louis Vuitton Supreme collab, it literally impacted the mid-market that was untouched by designer brands. You now see young people, probably in the ages of, if I had looked at their demo, it's probably somewhere between 13 and maybe 32. That hit another market. Price points hit another market. Brand awareness hit another market. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out who owned what. And so when I really went and looked at it, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And so now the YouTubers that are wearing a Supreme brand is directly connected to this high-end luxury brand that maybe you're swinging your bag in your corporate office, and or you're rolling your luggage through the airport. But look at the collision. Look at the value, the capacity, the increase in this brand collision. I love it. Lego and Stranger Things, and pardon that typo, Stranger Things. So if you go look, there's a Lego set that literally is the set of Stranger Things. How incredible is that? Taco Bell and Doritos. If you're a Taco Bell eater, right? Every now and then, I think all of us have probably had it as a guilty pleasure, but Taco Bell and Doritos is a huge collab that is still going on, very much so. And Nike and Sharpie in the UK, they put together a Nike and Sharpie campaign for the Nike Air Force Ones. If you look, they have a colored bottom that is in sync with the color of a Sharpie, and that was a huge brand collab. Bringing those together, Sharpie, which is 3M, I believe, ultimately is their parent company, and Nike, but Sharpie brand coming together. Sharpie is known for vibrant, vivacious colors and inciting creativity, and Nike, we know, is a just do it kind of brand. So what does that look like? How amazing is that, to bring these brands together to literally create magic in the market? How awesome is that? Why can't we all do the same thing? Why can't we bring this innovation together? And I think a lot of us have started to do that. So I'm going to talk to you about it. These are some of the benefits of collaboration. You have improved flexibility and productivity. As a brand, as a company, as a leader, you literally catapult your ability to be more flexible, because you're not the only one with the brainchild at stake. You're not the only one thinking big. Now you can actually think bigger and go into more of those creative pockets that you need to, or really hone in on your more technical, tactical perspective. And I'll talk about a couple collaborations to give you a little bit more clarity. And you have greater productivity. You can do more when you have more people to work and do more with. Now, this is different than having a team under you. Collaborative partners are typically nose to nose in terms of skill set, capacity, ability, network, etc. You want a mutually beneficial collaboration by all means. So don't collaborate down and don't collaborate too far up. Make sure that collaboration is in alignment so that you actually yield the benefits and you both benefit in equity. Otherwise, we get into some other things. Now, by all means, collaborations should happen with some collaborative agreements and NDAs and things like that. We want to make sure we keep our integrity in business. But I'm going to tell you, these are incredible benefits. You are far more innovative when you collaborate. Thinking big is something amazing. When we jumped into COVID, I see you, Jeanette. Yes, ma'am.
So we have a listener who asks, how do we measure that we're at the right level of collaboration?
Oh, great question. So I will tell you, one of the things you want to do, and I'm all about writing it down. What are you bringing to the party? What are you bringing to the collaboration? That's the first question you need to answer. What is my value in this collaboration? And then parallel to that, what is theirs? What are they bringing and what are you bringing? And I'm going to go full circle because I'm a strategist, and I'm going to say this. Collaborations work best when they're a part of your business plan and your growth strategy, right? That means you've already had a plan to grow. If you remember, I said we had a strategy to grow in 17. We worked the function of it in 18, and it hit the plan, the business plan for action in 19. We already had a plan to grow, and the collaboration was going to be the method. Now, it was a part of our strategic plan. So I already understood the areas I needed to collaborate in because I understood my strengths. So the first thing we needed to do, I knew what our company was known for as well. So what we needed to do was say, what areas do we have gaps? Where are our weaknesses? And that's where we need to collaborate. Or what project or innovation do I want to bring to the market? And then that's where you want to dig in and find your collaborative partner. So equitable collaborations, am I bringing the same kind of value that my partner is bringing, that my collaborative partner is bringing? And that is something you have to answer and ask of each other, and be sure you vet it out before you say yes, right? Be sure you vet it out before you say yes. Here's an example of a collaboration. I am a strategic organizational developer. So I look at big picture of the organization. I can see landscape from start to finish, from client intake, customer intake, to exit. I can see the whole process. I understand what happens in the intervals and the verticals once I get to know your business. But I'm looking big picture. I'm looking, if we move this peg, what happens over here? I'm looking big picture at organizations, right? I have a collaborative partner that is Six Sigma certified, very much so laser focused in the tactical process and change management flow. They're looking at the intricacies inside of a function, right? That is not my task. My task is big picture, aerial view. I set the course for the strategy and the work to be done. That person then comes in, they take that next layer and they go more tactical inside the verticals of the actual work to be done. That's what they do. So they get in there and they get in the details. And so they're understanding the timing of a process, and they understand then the workflow function of a process. They're going to understand and learn that customer systems to detail, because they may make recommendations that call for a system change or an upgrade or an integration that the customer may not realize is costing them money because they don't have it. That's not my focus. Can I do it? Yes. Do I choose to? Is it my preference? No. So I need a partner that understands the tactical and loves it. And so that's a collaborative partner that we have on our team, right? I also understand human resources. My MBA concentration is HR, organizational development. As again, I'm big picture. Do I understand HR law? Yes. Do I understand hiring, process development, etc.? Yes. Do I want that to be the function for me? No. I want to look at the big picture. I want to understand how your sourcing and your talent management process is impacting your overall operations and your profit. When I identify the issues, then that person can go into those verticals, dig deeper, and go into the tactical delivery of making sure we have strategic pieces in place that will keep you compliant and in guidelines based on industry, but also helps to keep your people engaged, right? So then I may design the training program for the organization, but am I delivering all of the training? No. Can I? Absolutely. But our strategic partners, our collaborative partners bring that value. So that's a 1-for-1. You may say, but you're big picture and they're bringing tactical. Yes. If I don't have the tactical, there's no need for my strategy. So we're bringing equitable value, right? In the instance of even the Resurgence conversation, I'm going to show you how we brought this together. And this was birthed in through a collaboration. Obviously, I had the task of forming the overarching theme and structure of the Resurgence concept, but Resurgence was already defined. I just needed to define it as it relates to business, and then my collaborative partner was so incredible in bringing it all together. So I'm going to show you that. So the innovation shows up, the engagement of your employees and your partners, it increases because now there's creativity and there's flow and there's more resources and there's more intel. Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things that you have expanded the aperture of your of the view of the business. How do you know you have focus when you're doing all of this? It's exciting, but we have to stay focused, you said. So how do we do that too?
It all goes back to the strategic plan. If you don't have a strategy for your business, if you do not have a business plan, if you do not have a 2020 plan on paper, meaning what are we going to do? How much is it going to cost to do it? Who are our customers? Who's in our pipeline? What are our big goals and objectives? Then you're already behind the 8 ball. You're swimming in circles because you don't have a plan to go against. How do you know what your baseline is? How do you know what you lost in 2020 as a result of COVID-19? How do you know? You have no clue. You're throwing darts at a wall and hoping that something sticks and it sounds good, right? So coming in even to the year, I understood the verticals that we wanted to occupy. I'm going to use this as an example. One of the first things we did in our online Facebook group, which is called Smart CEOs, is I went in and I said, here's what we learned in Harvey. When Harvey hit, which is a crisis, not at this proportion, but a crisis nonetheless in the Houston market. Here's what we learned. Take immediate account of what has stopped and has been impacted, right? At the time that the crisis, on the onset of the crisis, March 13th, I had 13 speaking engagements already scheduled between March and June, actually between January and June, of which some had occurred. The remaining engagements that had not occurred immediately impacted my bottom line. How is that? Because I convert when I speak, I meet and engage and network and build my pipeline of potential next speaking engagements. In addition to that, clients and colleagues that would normally benefit from me providing them with a platform or making connections for them were immediately impacted, so their impact was lessened. When you really start to think about how many different ways you generate revenue, that was scary. So just the speaking engagements alone, it probably impacted my bottom line about 25%. Now we're going to get over and come over to, for future pipeline development, right? Now we're going to come over to the actual service, the core service that we're delivering, right? We have larger clients and we have small clients, and we have volume and we have some larger clients that take up a bit more capacity. I had to understand what was on my books already. I needed to understand how I was delivering services and what my plan was for Q1, Q2, Q3, in order to determine if this client falls off, what does that impact? And how long can I manage without this client's revenue? Or who's next in line and how can I convert someone over to absorb that revenue that I'm losing? Who's going to make up for it? Basically, what client is going to fill that gap? So if you don't have a strategic plan, I'm going to tell you now that is the first thing you need to do. It's as simple as drawing quadrants on a piece of paper. Draw one line down and one line across, put Q1 at the top on the left, Q2 at the top on the right, Q3 at the bottom and Q on the left, and Q4 at the bottom on the right. And write down every single thing you want to do in that 3-month span. That is as simple as it gets. Write everything down, what you want to do in that 3-month span, right? We're approaching the last quarter of the year in October. We're in Q3 now. So, excuse me, yes, we're in Q3 now. So what is it that you still want to do in Q3, right? So we have 1 full month remaining, which would be September. What is it that you want to execute in Q3? Write that down. Start here. Start somewhere if you don't know. And then jump over to Q4. What do you want to finish before year end? What do you want to accomplish? Put dates and dollars next to it. And the very important thing that you need to put next to it are the resources, the human resources you need. Who's going to help you get it done? Who will help you do it? When you can answer those questions successfully, that is how you will know. So for the one, the one that had that question, be clear, leader, that if you don't have a plan, you don't have a measuring tool at all. You will not know if you're above bar or below, if you don't know what you're projecting toward or what you're aiming for. So it is imperative that you take the time to do that. Start today. Literally, draw your quadrants. It's a simple method. I have a tool if we need to provide you with it, but it's a PDF. You literally fill it in. It has lines and you can put your numbers there. What are you gauging, right? If you want to think about it even bigger, when you are looking at the quadrants of the year, how much revenue do you want to create? Write that number down first and then work backwards and start putting your activities, and your revenue generation goals in there and see if you're going to hit that number at all in the first place. That's the most basic way for you to start your strategic planning process. That is it. Know where you want to go. If you started off and you were kind of like a bullet in the wind and you don't know where it's going to go, it's just going to be, it's based off of whatever current comes, then you're going to be in that position, for years to come. But I can tell you, you have the authority. Remember, you can pull the reins back now. You have control to take advantage of this moment you're in right now while you're acutely aware. And don't call it a failure. Don't call it a miss. Call it opportunity and take advantage of it right now. Great question. So let's talk about what else happens when you actually leverage the collaborative currency. And I will say this is currency because this generates so much in terms of wealth, you all. Not only is your network more rich and robust, but your bottom line, your capacity grows as a business owner. You can do so much more when you collaborate. And it's not always you. You've got folks work. I can't tell you how many times I get a text message saying, hey, I already had your capability statement. We just submitted an RFP for this. I added you to it, just letting you know. Thank you very much. And I'm going on with my day. And we reciprocate that. That's when you know you have some equitable partners because you not only produce for them, but they're producing now on your behalf. That changes the game for business. It changes the game for how we do life. It just changes it. Yes, trust is a requirement. Yes, being open with your business is a requirement. But guess what? They have NDAs for that. And if you're nervous about it, then maybe that's not your, the collaborative partner for you. But build some trust and some equity and relationships that are going to help you grow. And the way you do that is by collaborating with people that you trust. Build a relationship by all means. I knew my initial collaborative partner. We'd done some things together, but I didn't know her. It took time. And now we probably don't have one day that goes by that we're not collaborating and working together on something. And right now we probably have about 6, maybe 10 projects that we're collaborating on. It just doesn't stop at this point. So now what does that mean? When she thinks about an opportunity for her business, she already knows if she throws the ball in, I'm going to catch it. So she has depth in her team already. And then whoever's connected to me, if I throw the ball in, they're going to catch it. So you see this compound effect happening as we start to really work together, right? Makes sense? I want to give a book recommendation for the last question, which was around planning. And I'm going to recommend a book called The 12-Week Year. I think that would be a benefit. It's called The 12-Week Year. And I think you should definitely get it and get it into your arsenal and learn the process of compressing your quarters into years. It will really accelerate your ability to do business. We do that to this day. We're an accelerated firm. We operate on a pretty fast track model. And you're going to see a little bit more of that even as we go today. All right, just trying to be mindful of my time and get through these slides, but that's a big piece of it. Accelerated growth, and then you're going to be more attractive. You're just more attractive. You're less stressed, right? You're going to attract greater clients, greater talent. Your vendors are going to love working with you, your partners, and by golly, we want the investors. So think about how attractive it is for you to be in a position of collaboration. And not only is it you, but it's you plus the collaborative partners and their capacity. That is the golden ticket. It's not just them, it's them and their capacity. So in COVID alone, in the first 3 months, we literally 7x'd our capacity. What does that mean? Now when I go for contracts or opportunities, I can go on a larger scale because I have at least, at a minimum, the capacity of 7 plus their capacity, right? That's massive. 7 consultants, 7 contracting consultants, 7 white labeling consultants that will work on my behalf and I on theirs to build and increase our capacity. That is huge. All right. So what is it? What is this? I'm going to show you. So in the collaboration, we designed this program, and the program is called, you guessed it, Resurgence. And I am beyond thrilled to bring this to the world. And so this was my answer to the question that Shirley Brooks asked me, which was, how can we create a recession-proof, a foolproof solution? And I thought there is none. But here's what I do know, that as a leader in business operations, we can create opportunity for people to grow. And so that's what we did. So we designed this program. So I'm going to share a little bit about the program with you. And I want you just to be exposed to it and understand what it is. The emergence from crisis always yields unlikely stories and plenty of tragedies as well. Over 90% of Houston area small businesses have lost revenue and have reported interruptions in their business or their work because of the current pandemic crisis. Here is the most important question you should ask. Am I going to emerge strong? So as leaders, we had to come to grips with ourselves and say, how am I going to come out of this? Am I coming out? And if so, how? And so if you've asked that question, then this is probably an opportunity for you to think about the Resurgence program and the Resurgence benefits. And I want you to know that that particular collaborative partner that I spoke about earlier, that I was nervous about connecting with, we've now done so much. And in one of our daily conversations, I shared with her what I had done, that I'd written the brief. Here's the concept around the program. And I don't even remember the words I said, but it was almost just immediately inherent with her. And she said, absolutely, we can do this together. And I thought, well, perfect. And I don't know what I said, and if I said, let's collaborate, but whatever it was, we now have joined forces to do that. And so she runs a firm called Epic Collaborative Advisors and the Kyra Company, and we've come together to deliver this on an entirely different level now. And so we were able to bring our thoughts together, be innovative, how we brought it to market. I didn't have that understanding just yet. I just knew my responsibility was craft and create the program. And from there, we started to put our heads together around the way to deliver it. And so this program is designed for you to really emerge strong. And so it's an 8-hour accelerated experience. It's an intensive workday. It is an 8-hour workday initially. And it's designed to expand your network, leverage your certifications if you have them on the state, local, or federal level. If not, we'll show you the process. And you also are provided with 90 days of implementation support post Resurgence Day. And then, of course, we've designed program bonuses that bring in all of our collaborative partners and vendors to help support the growth of our businesses. Our purpose and intention is to make sure that businesses in startup mode and in growth mode, which are both of our primary client bases, have the ability to stand strong and really, really support and fix the issues that they've identified in their infrastructure. So our goal is to build your business strong. And I say this, at the Kyra Company, we build big businesses, and small businesses, big business, and so is mid-sized business. And the goal is that we bring our corporate acumen in, and you benefit solely from understanding that your next step can be the best one. And that is really building your business stronger. So information about the program is here. How to access the program in specific is at our website, thekyracompany.com. And I'll share a little bit more about that as well. And just to let you know, we're super excited that we're launching our very first cohort, and open enrollment will begin on the 31st of August. And the first cohort date is October 16th. And so each cohort has 10 businesses in it, and each business has the ability to add 2 team members to join them. So there'll be a maximum of 30 people in each cohort. And that is how this program is rolled out. Jeanette, yes, I see your question. You have a question?
Yes. One of the listeners wants to know, you mentioned design thinking as a way of operating and way of looking at strategy, and that's unfamiliar. Could you just explain that?
Absolutely. So I want to break that open in a space where you think about, if you can remember or go back to when you were in startup mode, the days of startup, you were probably in the most effective method of design thinking at that time, because you were thinking, what is possible? What's possible? And design thinking is not a new term. It is probably more of an emerging term in the US, but it is all about looking at the what's possible for your business. So if you were to go back into, and I'll go back a couple slides, into this space right here where you're thinking, how do I maximize this time that we're in and leveraging new people or collaborative partners? Design thinking says, let me get as innovative as possible. Let me back up as far away from my operations as I can. Let me elevate as much as I can. And I'll give you a pictorial of what it means to elevate. So if you were in a parking garage as a leader, and you came in and you went up to maybe the 3rd level. At the 3rd level, let's just say this garage has 8 levels. You're at the 3rd level, and on the 3rd level, you may be able to see out. There's some cracks in the concrete around the perimeter of the garage. You can look out and you can see light coming in. As a leader, that's a great place to be. You're very close to the operation. But as you go up and you reach that 8th level, you're now at a position, and let's just say this is the rooftop, where you can actually see the entire canvas and the landscape of what's ahead of you. So not only can you see down into your business, but you can also see the perimeter around. So if you're design thinking, it's about what's possible, right? So if I'm now standing on this rooftop, my ideas say, what is possible? Why did they build that building that way? This skyline is incredible. Now I can think a little more clearly. I'm not as compressed and close to the business. I'm elevated a little bit, and I can really consider the opportunities that are out there for us and really, really be bold and go back to those grungy startup days that said, I just know I can do it. Design thinking really emerges when you give yourself permission to be creative and to be innovative.
Thank you, Kyra. And we have exhausted our hour together.
Yes, we have.
It has just flown by. And so I would just like to thank you for an just invigorating conversation. And you have contact information here. Remember, to all our listeners, that this presentation will be included on the Return to Work Task Force website later this week, in just a couple of days. So if you would like to see this again or use the information to reach out to the Kyra Company, you'll know how to do that. We really appreciate everyone's participation today here with us live on Facebook, and for those who will look at it in the future. We do want to remind everyone, flu season is coming up and that flu shots are now available, and we urge all of you to take care. Have a good day and good health. Stay well, everyone. Bye-bye now.